Welcome to another episode of Toplines and Tales and a new series looking at modern-day livestock operations. Over the last few decades, things have been rapidly evolving in the livestock sector, but last year has skewed these forward at a pace that couldn't have been imagined. This week we speak to a man with such a vision that he's constantly reinventing himself and his business as he explores new avenues within the industry. James Alexander from Randallstown in Northern Ireland. James, welcome to the podcast.
No bother, Andy. Glad to be here.
James, your family has been farming in Randallstown for 3 generations, is that right?
Yes, this is our 3rd generation on this farm in Randallstown, but my great-granda and my great-great-granda were farming that I know of, and then whoever before that as well, but we're at least 5th generation farmers, but a 3rd generation here. The original farm, granda came from the glens of Antrim, up Carnlough and Glenarm, so he came from the hills to come to the lowland many years ago.
And it was your father, Nelson, who started the tractor business there in the mid-70s, and that's grown into a massive operation now, and your main dealers, is that right?
No, he was offered a few dealerships back and forward, but he didn't take any on. He likes the independence of it, to go and buy what he wants and when he wants, and nobody trying to keep tabs off you. And we're good friends with a few of the tractor dealers, and whenever you hear about some of the dealerships put the owner through and having to keep a certain amount of parts and having to do the yard a certain way, now sometimes we're glad not to have any ties with anybody, just do your own thing.
Okay. And the tractor business obviously brought the money in, and your father bought a few more local farms around and about and some land. And how big's the farms there now, James?
We're farming about 1,000 acres at the moment, likely 800 odd of that owned, and then some corn acres as well. But it's an Irish farm, so it's spread out over like 5 miles one way and 8 miles one way and 3 miles another way. It's all scattered, but that's just the way. It's hard to get land all beside each other, and that's just the way a lot of farms over this way are.
And be some fairly good livestock land there, James?
Aye, good livestock land, wet, heavy ground, with nowhere to winter cattle, with very few big dry runs for sheep. That would be heavy, there's very few cattle out in the field yet, and it's the end of April, nearly beginning of May, and cattle will be in the end of September, definitely October.
You definitely have a lot more rain than the rest of us, and at the moment I hope you guys have got some, because everybody else here is screaming for it. It's been very dry over in the mainland. Yeah,
it was really wet and then it came good, but no, we have a wet farm. It goes from friggin' soaking wet until dry overnight. It never does come dry.
We never stop complaining as farmers, that's for sure. And you joined from college in 1997, and basically with your father running the tractor side of it, you took over the running of the farm. Was that just suckler cows back then, was it, James?
Yeah, I came home from college and we had a lot of beds and blue cows and beds and blue bulls, but there would have been dairy beds and blues. So there were a lot of muscly cattle about the place. Always my father's into the muscle, there always was, but there would be not a lot of colour, but a lot of white cattle and blue cattle and quite a bit of hardness. And there was a good base of cows there, but they were just freezing bred dairy blue crosses at that time, back to the blue bulls and back to, we only had one Limousin bull, I think with 11 or 12 blue bulls. So there's a lot of muscle, but not far from show cattle.
You took it your remit to improve those sucklers using a Limousin bull, and what other bulls did you put onto that herd at the time just to get them better?
I went to Carlisle for the first time on my own to buy a bull in 2004, and I bought 3 Limousin bulls. My 12 Rose bull and a full French bull, a bull called Tivoli, and he really clicked for us. And I bought a couple of Somerset bulls as well then, because I was aware that I wanted to try and breed my own females and like that Somerset blue cows, so I bought a couple of Somerset bulls, but I bought 3 or 4 Limousins, and that Tivoli bull, that French bull, really done a job. He had heavy bone, he had big plates, but in hindsight he must have carried the Q gene. And then whenever we hit them blue cows, the calves just clicked, really clicked. They kind of set the basis then for what I was going to show. I wasn't trying to beat show calves, I just seen a big square bull, and the bull worked, and then that kind of got me the basis, and that kind of got me the interest into the show thing.
And you certainly did. You started producing show calves for yourself, and very soon you were winning a local show, and then next year winning everything, including Allams. I think you won how many times there?
the first time, my father never showed any cattle, no interest in show cattle, with no halters. He laughed at me buying a blow dryer. He couldn't understand why someone was buying a hair dryer for cattle. Like, my father, no showing at all. My granddad had no showing. He's more of a sheep man than a cattle man. So I had to learn it all kind of from scratch. And I asked lots of questions and listened to lots of answers and tried to see he was doing well and befriended anybody who I respected and kind of learned as went along. But I was '06 before I showed my first animal, a white blonde heifer that was reserve blonde champion and reserve housewife choice in Alums. The first year I ever showed was '07 before I got my first reserve championship in Armagh show, and then with another heifer I won Castlewellan show in '07, and then I started to gain a bit of momentum then. It's like 3 or 4 years after that.
Like myself and a lot more of us listen to this podcast, it's a drug. Once you get into it, you just want to win and win, and yeah, you did. You went on and you became the man to beat.
I kind of had 2 or 3 good years, just the first year or two you're trying to show and you're trying to dress and you're trying to clip, and you make a lot of mistakes, and your people trying to help you to start, and then as you start to improve, the help dies down, and there's nearly people steering you the wrong way rather than the right way. So you kind of see that. I seen a lot after my 3rd or 4th year showing. I seen who was good and who was bad.
That's called politics, I think.
Yeah, I was showing for a social reason. I had no football, no rugby. I had no hobby, and this was my hobby. And I met some great people, and I met some bloody awful people too. But there's more good ones than bad ones.
And that obviously took you forward, and you had a stroke of genius when you merged the names James Alexander into Jalex, and you came up with a brand. And we all tried to be smart as youngsters, but you pitched a recognizable brand that would become an umbrella of your business.
I didn't set out or didn't sit and plan something. I sort of picked a herd prefix, and then rather than just use it for a limousines, I use it for. I had a handful of Charlies and a couple of Anguses and the Blues, and then the commercial thing was where my heart lay, and then I just kept pushing it, and then I changed it from the Jalex herd to Jalex livestock to incorporate the sheep as well, and I just kind of, I'm quite pleased with how the Jalex brand was going. The logos have changed a few times, but it just keeps it all together. It just makes it, if you're chatting to somebody, you ring and say, James Alexander here from Jalex, they kind of, hopefully it goes before you, just breaks the ice a bit.
It certainly has, and it's fast becoming a household word in the livestock industry in both the UK and Ireland. Your cattle would go on and be in demand from showmen in Scotland and England, and other guys wanting to buy show cars from you at that time. And I know we bang on about the great shows, Smithfield, where some of these cattle would be destined. Were you ever at Smithfield yourself, James?
No, Smithfield was just before my time. I was interested in it. My father wanted it 1 year. He's in London. I wanted it 1 year. And of course, I've listened to all you guys, you and Hugh Lop and Lazar Vance and Phil McPhail. I've listened to it all for fucking 10 years now. Tell me how great it was. And I just can't, not really something telling you, but I just can't get my head around going to London for like 7 or 10 days. They're going for sometimes, just how could you leave everything and just go and drink and talk shite for days? It just seems like a dream come true.
When we look back, we all wonder how the hell we did it and how we managed to get back home and have businesses and families to get back to. But you did have a lot of success with your cattle, and you were winning shows all around about the place. The cattle job was good to you for the next 10 years or so?
Aye, I kind of set myself goals. That's what I do the whole time. I keep setting myself goals, and I wanted to win. There a few wee shows at home that meant a lot to me. That there's a Fint and the Charlie show that I always watched people win. I always wanted to try and win it, and I won the Armagh show. 2013 was a kind of a pinnacle. I bought a limousine bull called Swarland Derry at 10,000 in Carlisle. I had the Tivoli daughters out of the first bull, and he was a big square bull, and then they went back to the blue. So then I had the daughters from the first bull back to the Erie, and it was just plates on top of plates, and they just were tremendous cattle. The first heifer that won multiple shows with was a heifer called OBGs, and she was a red daughter out of Tivoli, and then I bulled her to Erie, and then this bullet called Sterry Erie, and he won Balmoral show, and that was before, and Hugh Lop was judging it, and for Hugh Lop to be judging, he was watching with great admiration showing, and then for him to be judging it and put me champion at Balmoral in the middle of the lawn, it was a fantastic feeling. And then that year we won every single show we showed in right through. I think there's 9 or 10 summer shows, and then the two local shows was Ballymena and then Adams, and I won the clean sweep the whole entire year. And then that was kind of it done. Then that was what I set myself and slightly more. And then that took the heat off a wee bit because at this stage my family's starting to get big and I was starting to miss time with the family. My girls were getting bigger and I was keeping 400 or 500 cows and I was kind of pushed for time. And then I thought to myself, no, I don't want to stop until I won Smithfield or won some of the bigger shows. And then of course Gareth Small bought a heifer off me in January 14, and I went on to do Reserve at Balmoral and Beef Expo, or lightweight champion thing I got. And then it won Agri Expo, Reserve at the Winter Fair, and then it won Smithfield in 2014.
Great beast.
And then that was it. That was kind of right. Okay, I've done all I can possibly do for a while. It's going to take my foot off the throttle a wee bit.
Sure.
And that's when I sold the cows.
Sure, and you did that in 2014. You went for a massive change and sold pretty much the entire herd of your cows.
I did. People didn't believe in the time, but I sold the entire herd. Every good cow, every bad cow, everything won. And people weren't believing me. People didn't go to that sale because they didn't think I was selling my cows. I sold every cow I had. Not all in one day, because I sold my spring calvers in one day, but my autumn calvers just sold away from home and the odd weird drops here and there. But I sold the majority of the spring calvers all in one day, and that was the beginning of the end.
That really was a ballsy move, but as you say, you'd won all that you wanted to win, and you'd obviously seen the demand for these decent crossbred calves for the show circuit, and worked out that there was a equal demand for replacement heifers, in-calf heifers that could go on and breed decent calves. Where did that idea come from? I mean, that's a futuristic thing.
Even the time my father had the cows, before I was about, we just bulled all our heifers. More or less every heifer in the place, unless it was really, really bluish, or really muscly, we bulled everything. So we would have sold 100 or 150 cows and calves every August. First or second week in August, he would have just went through the fields, picked out whatever outfits, bulls, heifers, any age of cows, whatever was looking well, and sold them. So we had a precedent for people coming to us for breeding stock. And then whenever I started keeping the limousine cows and limousine bulls, we were selling our excess heifers every year. So we're always maybe keeping 50 or 60. So we're sold the rest of them. I mainly Ballymena, maybe 100 every sale, and maybe twice a year. And then whenever I sold the cows, the people kept coming to me for the heifers. Sure. So then I started buying heifers similar to the ones I was selling. And then it just kind of grew and grew and grew, and maybe at 400, then at 500. Well, up until last Saturday, at 1,090 heifers in the herd, right. And then we sold 200 last Saturday, 210 or maybe.
We'll go on to that sale in a minute, but some of those heifers that you will have bought those from maybe at the fat stock shows in the winter, or the ones that were winning prizes elsewhere. Would you be buying the thick ones?
Yeah, I don't know, sometimes my father in particular was scared of buying them fed heifer, them show heifers, and sometimes it's a dear way to buy them because you're competing against other top farmers to try and buy them, but there was a certain element of them coming in, yeah. If they were big and square and a bit of bone, I was happy to bring them off the show scene as long as they weren't overdone.
Sure, and of course you'd be looking then to supply cows that would go on to breed show calves, and that's where the gold is, isn't it, James? That's the serious money, is if you can breed the show calves together. There's more money. There's more trade in that than there is in the pedigree job.
But the last 4 or 5 years in particular, it's really taken off. I caught the very end of it just as I was starting to, at the time I was at it, I was trying to win, but then at the same time I was trying to sell them too, because I was buying good bulls and I was sort of keeping better heifers, and I needed to try and justify it. So I was trying to keep them and sell them both, and if I could change it all now I would, because there's cattle that sold that I should have kept, there's cattle that I kept that I should have sold, and but I was selling to Don McPherson a few, and Phil Sellers had a few, and Craig Henry. There's a good few people who were buying a few cattle off me to go across your end with, and some of them done relatively well, and some of them done really well, and some of them could have done a bit better, just unlucky in the day. But it's a hard line between trying to keep them and show them and trying to sell them. But if they had me getting the trade then that they're getting now, I would have sold more of them. But if I had sold more of them, I wouldn't have won what I won. So it's kind of a catch-22, I suppose.
It's an interesting concept, isn't it? They always say in breeding anything, you never sell your best females, but then when you're selling females at 3,000 and 4,000, as some of these animals were, and they can go on and win championships at Smithfield and these places, then you put them into better hands. But now you have the grounding of what it takes to breed a show calf. You'd be AIing your sale heifers to a variety of bulls, wouldn't you, according to shape and size and style?
We batch our heifers constantly, right? We're weighing, batching, watching all the time our own heifers. And then our biggest batch, I suppose, for AIing on one day would be sort of the 5th of January with AI. A lot of heifers to be calving the following October. And every year we pick out 30 or 40 heifers to put the different bulls to keep ourselves. And every year say, right, I'm going to keep them heifers and sell the rest and keep 40 heifers. Because I still have that interest in breeding that show calf, and I still feel as if I could do it. Not easily, but I could do it again if I wanted to. And I want to be out and about again, you know. And then every year they're in a pen and they're looking well, and someone comes to buy a heifer and they see them. And you just think, sure, you go and you buy 2 or 3. But then once you sell 2 or 3 of them, the batch is kind of ruined. And then I just sell away at them. So I've kind of resigned myself to the fact now that I'm just going to keep selling away at them. But every 3 months, I pick a heifer. I'm going to keep that heifer. I'm going to keep that heifer. But I never keep the heifer, because then if you're telling the man you're selling your best heifers, you have to sell your best heifers. I can't advertise a sale and say I'm selling 200 heifers or selling 50 heifers and have the best 3 heifers put away. It doesn't lie well. I would ruin my reputation, ruin my name as a seller if I was going to keep them. You can't keep them selling them both. So the case he wants to go to Carlisle and pick a bull and buy a bull, and then go home and keep the 30 heifers and put the 30 heifers to the bull to bring that nice, square, good top black heifer out again and try and win again, you know. But then there's so much ETN going on, there's so many people doing such a good job, you know. I really feel like even since 2013 or 14, the bar has been raised.
It certainly has, and as I said, that makes you an honest man if you tell everybody that's the best ones you got for sale and you haven't got one hidden around the corner. But the embryo transfer is becoming a thing with some of these show calves now making 4, 5, 6,000. They're above the money of bulls, and you're selling them at 6 or 8 months old. It becomes a temptation, doesn't it, to do that? And there are a few specialist guys in that trade, and your side of the water as well. Are you doing a bit of that yourself?
I'm not, no. It's the same thing again, you talk about it, and then I sold a heifer there recently and I really wanted to keep it, and then I thought before I sell it I'll flush it. But then you're selling a man a heifer that's been flushed already, and you've got out of her, and again it doesn't lie well to the reputation of being a seller. So I flushed a few pedigrees, no. And going back to your saying about the prices of them calves, they are a good price, they are. But I don't think people understand just what that producer goes through to get them. Sure. The cesareans and the big tongues and the ones with the bad knees and the ones that just don't want to get up, and the ones with the big tongues that can't get the teeth properly, and then they get the teeth properly and then they cut the back of their tongue with their teeth, you know. And when I was at the peak of it and I was trying really hard and I was kind of very much focused on breeding that show calf, and we had a large number of cows, but it was layer cows and with some little cows, with short, with all types of cows. You know, we had different batches of cows breeding some little calves for the herd. Like we didn't have 400 mostly good cows. We had a range of cows, and then in through the herd with good cows. But like the more you're at it and the more you care about it, and I'm friendly with a lot of the farmers that are caring their cows, and the cows out of a heifer, bred a show calf or a full sister, this or that. And like whenever they calve and you pull that calf and that calf sticks to hinges, or that calf takes septicemia, it really, really hurts. It physically hurts them farmers. And it physically hurts me, you know. But I think they deserve all they're getting, because it's all sunshine.
It's a chancing game, isn't it? It's like everything else in livestock. If you go for the extremes, then you take the casualties with it. And as you said, you sold the herd and concentrated on supplying breeding heifers. And do you keep any commercial cows at all now?
At the minute, we're doing no breeding whatsoever. The only cows I have are a few limousines and a few blue pures, but no, everything we're doing, we're just constantly buying in and sourcing heifers and constantly selling heifers. We have no herd base of commercial cows whatsoever anymore.
You have a few pedigree limousines, as you said, which you've shown a few, I think, and done reasonably well with your small herd of limousines.
I have, yeah. I enjoy having them. I don't have the time to spend with them. I maybe should have, but I've built up a nice batch of cows that I should try to enjoy more.
And you concentrate obviously on selling animals from home, and we'll move on to your sales just now. But generally, you'll have a base of people will come and buy cattle off the farm from you.
Yes, mainly Saturdays. A lot of part-time farmers. Northern Ireland's a small place. Ireland's a small place. A lot of small farms. A lot of builders, plasters. Working men come on the weekends buying 2 or 3 cows, and they all keep a herd of 20, 30, 40, 50 cows, and they're buying their 2 or 3 replacements back and forward, and they'd cull 2 cows and buy 2 heifers. I would keep the blue sort of monthly heifers in the field and the blue lesser heifers in a different batch, and the red and white thumbs in the batch, and then you would ask the man what type he's after, and then you would show him the batch corresponding to his need. So I think people know us for having that good heifer, but with Solairs and Simmentals and with Shorthorns, but there's heifers for everybody here. I think I think sometimes whenever you sell heifers and people talk about the big prices, and the big prices are always a musclier, better sorts, and you kind of forget about the other selection of heifers that you have on the farm.
Okay, so you changed your system to a different mold, and as well as sales of cows from home, you started an on-farm sheep sale, and things are moving on pretty well over 4 or 5 years, and then bam, COVID hits us, and it's time to reinvent again, James, this time moving to online trading. A huge change.
Yeah, the I think the COVID sped up something that should have happened years ago
Yep.
because whenever we buy our tractors and we buy our 4x4s and all, it's all online. You can go to the auction surely, but it's all online. So like most of us that side of the water are buying everything online because it's too expensive to spend a day traveling to Manchester or London, wherever you're going to. And like that always should have been happening in the cattle markets, but it wasn't happening.
Mhm.
Which suited the dealers well, but the COVID had just sped up a process that was going to happen in due course. And I suppose I was waiting for it to happen. And whenever it did happen, I jumped at it the first chance I got to try and get it utilised from my own business for the sheep first of all, and then the cattle. We done one sheep one based with the ringside buyers, and then last year the COVID sheep thing, and that was just tremendous for selling
Yeah,
all
that's
over
it.
the country.
Let's just go on to your sheep. Again, you took a change of turn. In fact, you sold all your commercial ewe flock as well, didn't you? Opting instead to start supplying female replacement hogs to the commercial man.
He
Uh,
just had a good commercial flock of sheep producing a good fat lamb and the odd ewe lamb, but I couldn't get help and there were too many cattle and my family got big, so I sold the sheep before I sold the cows to try and drop one off, and then I had to drop both off. But then I bought sheep back in again to try and drop the cattle numbers. But instead of that happening, my cow numbers have risen and my sheep numbers have risen, and I'm standing here today with more sheep than I ever had and more cattle than I've had this last 10 years too. So I don't know. I don't know how that happened, but it's my fault, and that's just where I'm at today.
sure, and as said, you're running the Cheviot Cross Mule, putting them back to a Suffolk,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
emphasis on uniformity, I think. And you're up to 700 ewes now. Is that round about right,
I
James?
what about 550 ewes, 550 commercial ewes, all Cheviot mules, all going to Suffolk Tuffs, sharp, bare, tight skins, just trying to get the sharp and really looking at ewe lamb as we can. Just
Hmm.
a bit of
And
the carcass there and the good sheep naturally, but it's the heads and the character and the ears and that good bright eye that we're really going for.
of course, a familiar desire from the commercial side to the pedigree breeder, looking for sharp heads on a good carcass. That's what breeding stock is all about, really, isn't it? And to start with, you'd pitch these Gimmer hogs into the mart, wouldn't you, in batches? And but the last time we met, I think, was at the Golf Open a couple of years back, and you were just organising your first on-farm sale of females, which I believe went very well. Must have been a lot of work, though.
We always would have run them hogs over dry and would have sold 200 in Ballymena and maybe 100 in Squatra, and then a few less ones at home. So you're spreading your workload over 4 or 5 days. But then whenever you decided to do it at home, you had, well, the first sale was 700 sheep, so we had 700 sheep to get right on their feet, right in their legs, and looking well and dressed and clipped all in one day.
Mm.
And then getting them penned, getting them penned. And again, we're in Ireland, so if you put any more than 12 in the pen, you choke the buyers. There's a lot of buyers looking small numbers.
Mm.
So with that first year with 700 sheep split into from 6 to 12, all penned, and you have big ones and wee ones and sharp ones and dark-headed ones and light-headed ones, and trying to get them all penned to perfection.
Mm.
And then last year, of course, we grew it slightly more, so we had 1,000 sheep last year in total between hogs and ewes and gummers and shearlings and tups and everything.
You built a full sale yard pretty much on the farm, haven't you?
Yeah, well, the shed burnt down. A
Oh,
big straw shed burnt down. So then we had to build a shed beside that shed, waiting for that shed to be repaired. And I was built bigger than I wanted to be built at the time by my father. And then we used it for lambing the sheep in. And then I made up this sort of ring and this just sort of metal bars and made a ring. And then put the seats around it and the bales around that. And then penned the sheep behind that again. So it kind of turned into the sale ring. And then whenever the idea of the cattle sale, we got the chance to buy the sale ring out of New York. That was an online sale. So I heard about it on the Wednesday. The guy told me, and then it was on Thursday morning. I got it bought on the Thursday morning, at home on the Saturday, and set up for the Tuesday for the sale on the following Saturday. And that was all over New Year and COVID as well.
you
So
must
that
have
was,
a lot of people and a lot of friends just would have been a lot of favours maybe to get all that operation going. A lot of staff.
yeah, there's a lot of phone calls here, this side of the water, your side of the water. There's a lot of favours asked for, a lot of people on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve trying to help me get it all ready. The cattle and the ring. The ring was the main thing, because the cattle, when we're nearly ready for it, the ring, we're just going to use bales, and then we've got a chance of this ring and trying to get it set up. And different people took the ring down, let's put the ring back up again, and trying to put, it's like a 1,000-piece puzzle with no pictures. That was a nightmare. But we got there in the end, and it worked out absolutely wonderful. Like the
Yeah.
feeling, standing on that podium watching the cattle be sold and the ring set up was just an amazing feeling. Amazing.
We'll move on to the online sales in a minute, but meanwhile you were looking to source some Suffolk rams to breed those hog replacements, and again when we last met you were thinking of buying a few pedigree Suffolk ewes to breed your own rams, and that you did, and have already been extremely successful in that venture. Where did you source the Suffolk ewes from, James?
I bought a good few of them from Rocket.
Runciman.
Yes, Ransom, and that's the one,
Okay.
Alan Shaw's. And I bought a few sheep ewes off him, because every year in Kelso he the type of sheep I was after, and they were good and black. And I met Deirdre Smithfield, he was judging the sheep, and I've seen him on TV a few times, and I've seen him from the show rings a few times, but never got to meet him. I never got a chance, and then I was sitting down before the judge and the night before it, and there he was sitting beside me in front of the fire. I thought, oh my goodness, it's going to be a long night, and it was a very long night, or a very short night, I should say. So no, I think a lot of the man, and I got a chance, and went over and bought a few ewes off, and that kind of got me started.
Okay, and
And then I built up a few numbers since then on.
you sold a Suffolk Tup at 6,000 last year out of a Strasbourg ewe. Where'd you get her from?
That was the Highland, actually. And I was later than I should have been, because I was home later than I should have been. And I met Jack Smith, and Jack Smith says, there's a great ewe lamb over here. And I went over, and she was in the ring, and she was being judged, and she was down, maybe 10 or 11. And she moved up and up and up and up. But she was really bare and really black, and just everything that the Suffolk men complained that she shouldn't be. She was too strippy, and like for a ewe lamb to be stripping in June was just, my head was nearly away. And I think she ended up either third or fourth in the class of ewe lambs. And I can remember I went and sat in the pen with her, sitting just admiring her pen. I sat in the edge of the gate, and some of the Suffolk guys walked past me and kind of smirked at me. And somebody says to me, James, nobody looking at her, you couldn't afford her. So it kind of made me feel smaller than I should have let it.
That'd be big words to a man like you, to be fair.
And I just thought, right, that's okay. And I didn't even ask James Ennis was he going to sell it. I just kind of went home and left it alone and just never thought much more about it. And I was sitting in Portrush about a month later having a pint, and it was 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening. The sun was shining. I was the second or third pint of beer waiting for my friend to come and join me. And I come into my head and lifted the phone and I rang him and I says, how much will that sheep be? And he says, X amount of pounds. So after 10 days of negotiations, I gave him exactly what he asked me. And it was a lot of money at the time for a sheep, for somebody that had sold no sheep. But our first two tops got 6-1 and £1,800, and I kept the ewe lamb and flushed her this year. and she gave me 5 ram lambs last year that have a shearings this year. So she paid herself off for the first
Gonna
lamb,
say
So
another 5 years she'll have paid for herself.
yeah, well, I hope before then she's gonna put them on with a good top lamb this year too. So that was a big investment up me for the time, but no, I'm just delighted that I stuck in and bought her.
A lot of people say on this podcast, when you see the right one, you just know that they never do. As well as building up the numbers, the Suffolk through flushing, you'll have done, I'm sure, and you bought an entire Suffolk flock last year. How did that come about? How many POUs you got now?
We've over 100 pure ewes at the minute. We've more ewes than I have common sense, to be totally honest. We're
You're some man.
kind of took on maybe more than I can chew with the help that I currently have. But no, we bought a couple a few years ago off Landale, Hazel Martindale, and I wasn't there. My colleague seen the top, and he bought a top on my behalf, and he's come home, and he's just exactly what he's after. Long, clean, bare, black, silky skin, just a lovely sheep. And I got to know Hazel then, and over a few times, and I just heard the quality and the blackness and the tight skins of her. She blew me away. And I said, tell her if you're ever selling any ewes, let me know. But in the meantime, she didn't understand it, and I tried to do a deal, and she didn't do a deal, and I just bought away at ewes to build up the numbers. And then the night before my sale last July, she rang me and said she was ready to sell them. But I already had like 50 ewes gathered up at this stage, and then she gave me the chance to buy hers, and I didn't want to miss the chance, and I bought the ewes. And so that's where I'm at today. But it just gives me a really good base of ewes to move forward with. Really black, really carcassy. They're tremendous sheep. She's brilliant sheep.
You bought pretty much the entire flock. Yeah, well, there we go. That'll be some more Suffolk ewe replacements. It'll be your next thing. And move on. You still get involved in the tractor business yourself, there, James?
Yeah, kind of. Where I'm in the office most days, all day, every day. But it's mainly the pickups and 4x4s that I concentrate on. My father works with the tractors happily, and I work with the pickups.
Another niche market. Another niche market, yeah, and a market you're shifting those from in and out of the country and to farmers.
Yeah, it's a similar customer base, you see, where we're fit to do the same advertisements and the same publications, and it's hitting the same market and the same farmers. There's an element of the lifestyle buyer too, with the city guys and the guys with boats and horse boxes buying the 4x4 as well. But the main market would be the farmers.
Okay, and I guess the on-farm sales that you've been having would bring a few buyers in for those as well. It's people coming in for all sorts of. You got a lot of things for them to get in the sweetie shop when they get there.
Yeah, between the open days and then the on-farm sales, it brings another audience to your door that wouldn't maybe be there if they weren't there for a reason.
And obviously the COVID has hit, and that will have slowed down a lot of the people coming onto the farm and made things difficult. But hopefully things are getting back together now. But let's go back to the online sales, and there were a
Yep.
few video sales in 2001 during the foot and mouth. I was involved in a few of those, and those restrictions. But the online sales is virtually a new concept for all of us, and yeah, for you it started with the Gimmer sale last year, which went pretty well. Your sheep made a hell of a trade online, and how does that work? I mean, people come and visit the sheep and on the farm set times beforehand, I guess.
They did, but the sheep didn't work, because the sheep, had last year 1,000 sheep sold, and they're all run about 8 or 10 fields with between 30 and 100 per field. So it's very hard for the farmer to see particular pens of sheep. So it's just more the quality of the camera and the ring gives the farmer a good idea. You try and have the quality where the farmer can buy and know he's not going to go too far wrong. And then B, he can see the sheep well enough in the ring with the cameras to really see that he's buying the size or the power or the colour. You can see the colour and the tight skins. Like the whole run of Gimmers had a tight skin. So the skins were never going to be a problem as long as the colours were suitable for the buyer.
It's a science, isn't it, really? And as you say, if the video quality is good enough to show up the quality of the stock, that's a massive conditional factor. James, if I asked you to put the cost of shipping stock to market or even selling from home versus the ease of online selling, where would you stand on that?
For me, and having the numbers, it just gives me the chance. Like I couldn't draw 1,000 sheep to market in one day. I couldn't be done. You couldn't. you couldn't keep the audience to pick your sheep. Once I always back to the quality. People come one year and the sheep are wrong, they'll just go to the market the following year and buy them in the market. I need to try and keep. I need to have the quality to give them the confidence to buy off me, whether it's online or whether it's in the ring. You need the quality there to keep the customer there. I need them to come and buy them 1 year and be happy and have a bit of milk and plenty of lambs, and then go back the following year to get his replacements again.
Sure.
You can't. There's this pressure on you to keep the quality coming without letting it slip.
Sure. Repeat customers are the best customers, aren't they? Always.
I think the first year with no online, people came, seen the sheep, and then last year with the online thing and the fact of the COVID, I gave them an excuse not to come, and then people just bought online. They bought before, they knew that they were buying, and I paying them more or less the exact same way. I paying them the powerful sheep first, and then after about 10 pence, the sweetest, the nice British sheep. So people around me, I kind of told them what to do, and then no, they were never going to go that far wrong. Most of it, other than maybe the last few pens, the quality didn't really drop, and if they were fit to buy any of them, they were fit to buy right.
Sure, an element of trust as well with these guys, and maybe they're sitting there. Farmers are busy people, maybe they don't need to take a whole day out to go and buy those when they can sit and buy them online, and it shortens everybody's buying time and everybody's selling time. I'm not saying it's always going to happen, but it is certainly a change in the industry that gives us all a little bit more time. And you use a firm called Mart I, is that right? Where are they based, James?
Oh, they're based in the south, and just a really lively, full of energy group of young guys. They just, whenever I first met them, they were doing the stuff for Richard Beatty, and then they come up here to set up the cameras for the sheep sale, and they have a really nice bit of energy about them. They're not feared of trying it, and if you've an idea, to listen to it, and if you ask them to put the camera there or give them a new idea, they'll take it on board. It's a really good group of lads.
Mm-hmm.
I love their energy.
Yeah, obviously that's a business that's again, was probably happening before the COVID, but it's something that the entrepreneurs have boosted on. It's a ill wind that blows nobody any good, that's for sure. And your most recent sale was a big one, wasn't it? The Select 2 that you call it, in 200 heifers, topping at 7,500 for a 3/4 blue heifer, and you posted videos of every one and offered transport, and you even offered finance, James. It was some operation.
Yeah, I really want to push the boat out. The first sale on the 2nd of January, I was kind of forced into it with the times. The breeding thing had moved forward, and I've been selling heifers at home this last 5 or 10 years, and the people came every year, and the heifers were sort of 1650 for the good average heifer, 18 for a better heifer, $2,000 for a show heifer, and 1500 for the odd plainer heifer. But the thing had moved on, the prices had moved on, the prices had risen in the markets, but then my customers at home still weren't willing to give much more money than they were given, and they were getting frustrated at me for asking more money than I was asking, despite telling them that things were dear now. So then I thought, I'm going to pull out 50 exceptionally good heifers that I happened to have at the time, real proper heifers, and I just photographed them all with Alfie Shaw, put them online in the catalogue, and put them through the ring. But then in the background, I had a win of heifers that were ready to sell if the trade was good. And the trade was good, and the buyers were online, and the buyers were in the hall. So I sold the 55 or 50 sort of select heifers that I'd picked, and then I sold another 50 or 60 heifers after that were just good straight, good heifers, but not exceptional heifers, just good suckler heifers.
Sure.
And then because I had that confidence to sell 100 heifers on the 2nd of January, I thought, I'm going to push the boat out this time and try harder. Because it's at the edge of grass, sun shining, grass is meant to be growing. Okay, it wasn't growing, but at the time I booked the date, the grass should have been growing. And I thought, I'm going to go all out here. And I set myself this target. And my wife says, right, what is the goal? I said, I want to sell 200 heifers one day from my own yard. So I had 220 or 30 heifers ready. Realistically, I wanted to sell 136 select heifers. I had photographed individually and videoed individually was 136 heifers. And then whatever sold after that was a bonus. But secretly, I wanted to sell 200 heifers.
Mm-hmm.
So we sold 136. They sold well, not as well as the first sale, but a lot more realistic trade. They were from 1850 to 7,500. 7,500 heifer was a fantastic heifer.
She was, yeah.
Two or three cows offer. People don't understand that why she's making the money or on the commercial man, but 2 or 3 cows offer could pay for. One calf could really pay for it, but the man that bought her, the first man, he'll make the job of her. She's full of breeding, she'll do well. But other than that, one or two top places, it was a very realistic trade. And then after that, I just kept running through the other heifers, and I paid the buyers, and then the buyers started to slow down. And I said to the auctioneer, well, pull the plug, is that enough? He says, I need another 10 heifers. But I didn't know I needed another 10 heifers, but it turned out he was keeping account of them. And he didn't tell me this, but he was 5 or 6 heifers away from my goal. So we just kept running the heifers through until we sold 200. And actually, I think we sold 204 or 5 lots altogether. So that was a big day. It was a gamble. It just worked no more. We were running out of buyers. Buyers were starting to drop off. But then the quality was dropping too. You see, the quality was going down the whole time. So.
An absolutely outstanding achievement, and for you to achieve your goal on that day, you sound like a man that's always going to achieve your goals, James. But more to the point, you've set, I think, a precedent, and there's been a few people and a few I'll talk to over the next few weeks about having the confidence of these online sales, or people on the online sales having the confidence to buy from yourselves because you've had that historic honesty with the sales in the past. Do you think this concept is here to stay? I mean, what are the drawbacks of us all buying stock online instead of turning up in a month?
I think as long as the person's honest and as long as you're buying what you're seeing, I think there's few drawbacks. I think if you're sitting at home buying ordinary cattle in an ordinary market, but just whatever lands in, you've always a chance of buying something wrong. But like whenever that's the whole idea of me photographing them all, and they're not standing, well, there's 2 heifers haltered, but generally they're not haltered, they're just photographed just in the field. There's 4 or 5 shots of every heifer, so you're drawing a picture of the heifer. You're fit to give everybody more or less an angle from all around the picture or all around the heifer. So I know I can't see, as long as I'm honest and as long as I have good enough cattle for it. I had the sex of the calf, at the date she was due, at the bull she was in calf to, and I had her weight. So you're getting the full entire picture of the heifer. Like you weren't buying a heifer that somebody lying on the ground taking a photograph and the heifer looked big, and then you got her home and just 700 kilos. It said 700 kilos on the catalogue. You knew her exact size. So like, I think for likes of my cattle moving forward, I don't think the drawbacks are that big. You have all the information you need, but I think there always is that risk for somebody buying online of getting the wrong one, you know. But
we've all bought a pig in a poke on eBay before. But James, an absolute credit to you for giving a lot of forethought and planning into this before you went ahead. And as a man of vision, as a great marketeer, you command the admiration of a lot of folks within the industry, particularly as a trendsetter for others to follow.
I really appreciate them kind words. That's nice to hear, because you hear more bitching than you hear kind words. But I enjoy it. I wish I didn't set off such targets sometimes, because it nearly kills me and all the people around me. But I do really enjoy it. I never muddle up it, and have a good team around me. You've plenty of good help, and you've people sort of get caught up in the whirlwind with you. That's just great moving forward with it.
And I've got to ask you this question. I'm going to ask a few people that we're talking to in this series: is where do we go next? The moon?
No. Today's the bad day you asked me, because I'm barely over the exhaustion after the last 3 years. We've seen lambing Suffolk ewes, and then lambing Ember ewes, and then lambing commercial ewes, and still a few Suffolk ewes lambing. And ready for that sale. My energy levels are right down on the ground. So today's not a good day to ask me, but I think I'm going to have 2 sheep sales this year. I'm going to have a sheep sale on the 31st of July for my ewes, and then a sale on the 20th of August for my tops, because there's too many to do in one day. I have 70 tops alone. So as long as I can just keep up the numbers and keep up the quality, I'm just going to keep on trying to do what I'm doing as well as I'm doing it.
I don't know where you get the energy from, and the last time I saw you was in Portrush at the Golf Open, yes. And I still owe you a beer there, James. I really appreciate your time for talking to me, and Jalex, the brand, is superb, and I hope that's interesting to a lot of our listeners. Cheers, James.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Good luck, man.
Cheers, man. Thank you for listening to our Toplines and Tales podcast. You may like to take a look at our Toplines and Tales Facebook page as well, where you'll find some photographs to back up this episode, as well as many more photos and discussions on similar topics.